I'll have to switch off the lights. Where's the cable? Setting up this. Yeah, but Krishna is not here. So what will anyone see? Me. I have to see the presentation. Okay, here we go. Okay. Here we have 4 broken steps that signify or represent the 4 defects that we are going to be discussing that enable us to access the truth. So the art of learning, the process of acquiring knowledge. Okay. So there are going to be several topics. I'll be discussing about 6 blind men, 3 ways of gaining knowledge, what are the 4 defects, and about the Vedas. And how to see the world through them. Okay. How many of you know this example about the elephant and the blind man? It's just the example, but it's very educating example. There have been 6 blind men, and they were trying to conceive what the elephant was. So then they were brought in front of the elephant, and it was a very good elephant, it wasn't a wild one, it's very submissive. So then what they did, they each, some or other, surrounded the elephant and started touching the elephant. And then by touching the elephant, they tried to conceive what the elephant was. So like we can see here, you know, one was touching the tusks, one was touching the ear, the body, another one the leg, the tail. So then one was thinking, yeah, another one was touching the trunk. So he thought it's just like some kind of big snake. Now another one was touching the tail, he thought it's just something like a rope. And then another one was touching the ear, so it's like some kind of a, well, let's say a fan rather. Yeah. Another one thought, oh, his belly is like some kind of wall, very hard, very large. And then pointed tusks were like some kind of sharp arrows. So it wasn't easy for them to understand what the elephant was, no? Until somebody passed by and then explained everything to them. And even then, it was difficult to conceive what the elephant was. So this is going to be the subject of our discussion today, how to understand things, whether we have particular perception, understanding, we come to certain conclusions. What is the process of acquiring knowledge? This is called epistemology, process of acquiring knowledge. So how to acquire knowledge in a way that we really understand what something is that we are trying to conceive. Okay, the tree we may start. So 3 ways of getting knowledge. One is called pratyaksha, that's in Sanskrit, pratyaksha praman. Another one is anumana, anuman praman. And the third one is shabda. So these are going to be the subjects. Okay. So when we see the railway tracks, right? What happens in the distance? What it appears going on? They're connected. Okay. They seem to be connected. But is this the case? No. Very interesting. Then when we put a stick in the glass of water, no? So it's what it appears. That's like very old example. And I don't know in which grade it comes in when you start learning something about physics.
Reflection of light.
So it appears broken, but we're just talking about direct sense perception. Then sometimes when it's very hot, of course the summer just passed, the road seems like to be like now flooded. But it's not. Due to heat, it appears like there is water on the road, but it's not. It's just another kind of perception. And then if you stand in front of, there are all kinds of funny mirrors, and it's like our image turns to be kind of distorted in so many different kinds of ways. So does that reflect the reality? Does our perception reflect the reality? Yes or no?
No.
No. So that's something that we have to understand about our perception. It's not necessarily a reality. Okay. So we cannot acquire complete knowledge using our material senses like eyes, ears, tongue. We can't acquire complete knowledge. Some kind of idea, some conception of something we may gain, but not completely. So information and theories in science are changed, updated, and modified due to humans possessing 4 defects. Okay, we had Dalton's atomic theory, so that wasn't that. Rutherford's idea, that also wasn't working. Then Bohr's theory, that also didn't work well. So therefore we have imperfect senses. Like we see, what is the spectrum of the light that we can, for example, perceive by our eyes. So one is imperfect senses. Then second one is to be illusioned. There are so many illusions. Some of them we will also present in this presentation. Okay. Then the third one is tendency to commit mistakes. There's a saying in the West, to err, it's human. And of course the fourth one is cheating propensity. All kinds of cheating propensities are there. Anyway. And that's unavoidable also. Okay. So imperfect senses. So we already stated that our eyes are blind outside of the range of 400 to 700 millimicrons. That's a very small range that our eyes can perceive. And even within that, how often our eyes, well, it actually is going to happen to everyone with the age, if nothing else. The eyesight is going to weaken. And even whatever we perceive, how little do we perceive? So what is the power of our sight? Then our ears are deaf outside the range of 200 to hertz to 200 kilohertz. Okay. So we cannot hear infrasounds, we cannot hear ultrasounds. Like in the West they have a dog whistle. Can whistle and nobody else can hear it except your dog. Or maybe some other dog. And then of course the bats. As just recently, last year, we were in South India, and then there was one bat. He had trouble getting into his hole. Somehow this, whatever ultrasounds he was emanating didn't work well. He was somehow struggling. That's a problem, and of course it was early morning when the sunrise happens. And then it becomes more difficult for them. Nighttime they're very agile, they're very fast. In the morning becomes a little difficult for them. And then of course the dolphins, they also use the ultrasounds. So scientists' senses have limitations. They try to use instruments to get more knowledge of the world. Nobel Prize winning physicist Eugene Wigner points out, even if we photograph stars, eventually we have to take in by our senses what a photo shows. Furthermore, without our senses, we cannot handle a camera. Even if we amplified, refined by instruments, the knowledge is no more perfect than our imperfect senses. So we may come up with incredible technology, but another point is again that we are using our imperfect senses to apparently purport the perfect images, and then ultimately the knowledge that we gain is no more perfect than our imperfect senses. So much for the science. So to be illusioned, tongue, when you have something sweet, and then you have something sour. So when you taste orange after sugar, how it tastes? Sour. Okay, what about orange after lemon? Sweet. But is it sweet? That's the point. Okay, so when you touch, let's say, water touched with warm hand appears cool. And then same water touched with the cold hands appears warm. So you see how our sense perception varies. Okay. So now we'll have a little kind of exercise, because each picture has at least two ways to see, depending on what you choose to discard, or depending on what you focus upon. So you can use your creativity and identify the two different ways of perceiving each of the pictures. What do you infer from such observations? Okay, let's see now. What do you see here? Anybody can perceive anything? Okay, can you see several things?
Yes.
Which actually have nothing to do with each other, but it just merged. So these are called optical illusions. And it's amazing how our eyes can create such kind of optical illusions, or certain kind of environment even sometimes can create certain illusions. And of course people can create amazing illusions. Next one. Okay. Is this steady or it's moving? This is not video, this is What about this one? Yeah. Okay. Are these people same or not? Oh, they are, but do they appear like that, really? From distance at least. Okay. Okay, if you focus on the dot and move your head backward and forward, what happens? What happens with the circles? They're moving. Yeah, they're rotating. Okay. Wow, that's a good one. You have to be real careful. There was the story, yakshas. Yakshas are a type of semi-divine beings. And of course, all the divine entities have particular powers. But the yakshas are specifically known for creating different kinds of illusions. So then in Mahabharata, when Mayadanava built a enormous palace for Yudhishthira Maharaj, it was just state-of-the-art. It's not just divine, but also Mayadanava was a demon actually. But in response to Arjuna's protecting him, whatever, he used all these powers, technological powers and all kinds of powers, architectural powers, to create such a palace. So it was just incredible palace. We can't even imagine practically. Of course, we come to understand a little bit by descriptions given in Mahabharata. So it was an amazing place. And in that palace, let's say you wanted to, there would be a wall, but if you wish to pass through, the wall would open. Or the door would somehow appear sealed, and you wouldn't be able to pass, but then by just thinking about it, it would open. It's just like we have these automatic doors, closing and opening. Or there would be a floor, but there wouldn't be staircase. And if you would think about it, then the staircase would appear, and you would be able to climb up. So many various kinds of descriptions were given. And then also, once Duryodhana heard about such an amazing palace, and he was given a tour. He desired to perceive what is this opulence. Of course, he was always very envious of Pandavas, so he wanted to see what kind of opulence they're living in, what kind of palace do they have. And then he stepped on some floor, and then he thought it looked like a water, but it wasn't the water. It wasn't the water. So it appeared a little bit funny. It was humorous. And then he came to another place, and then there was again such kind of floor. It appeared like a water. So based on previous experience, he thought it's not a water, but actually it was a water. And then he entered in, and he just almost fell practically to his knees and became completely wet. And then all the princesses, they were, seeing all this, and Draupadi also, she was laughing. Everybody was laughing because it was a funny sight. Duryodhana, he was like, you can imagine, very proud man, very, like egoistic. And he just, enters into somewhere, just completely, falls down, makes himself wet, and it wasn't very pleasing. And Duryodhana was very offended, and he was like, he was burning with anger. Anyway, that's what led to the gambling match afterwards and so forth. So, like these yakshas are very expert. They know the arts, how to create different kinds of illusions. So like this, it can be incredible illusion. You can walk on the pavement and then on the street and then become very bewildered. Okay, another one. All kinds of stuff going on here. It's interesting, people have incredible imagination, right, Suraj? You're not up to that level, or what? You have some artists here. Okay, there's another one. Oh, that's another one. This is more famous, but we won't discuss it now. Let's go fast. We'll discuss this some other time. Okay, so the third one is to commit mistakes. So the brain was thought of as an organ to cool the blood. That's what people thought at some point of time. So master glands were considered a vestige or useless tissues in a human body. Well, then the value of Hubble constant used as a cosmic yardstick has been changed 3 times. So small mistakes can lead to large disasters. Anybody has any example of that? Small mistakes can lead to large disasters. I mean, when you write exam or something, maybe then. Or any other? Can anyone think of any other example?
If we not study, we will fail.
What?
If we not study, we will fail.
No, that's okay. But mistakes, yes.
In mathematics, if we change the sign, so every answer will get wrong.
Okay.
Green can drive?
But something like, yeah, that's not small, that's a big one. Small mistakes. Huh?
We can take the example of Odisha accident, train accident. It was also mistakes of some engineers.
What was that?
Train accident.
Rail accident. Oh, I have no idea. Anyway. Yeah, accident. Whatever accidents, but it's, it's like.
300 people died.
Well, you see. Yes.
Forgetting commas and full stops in English paper.
Well, what kind of teacher is that? You shouldn't fail you. Okay, anyway. And then fourth one. You see, one precedes the other. We'll explain it. But then this fourth one, the cheating propensity. In science, we heard about so many different kinds of pill-down man, up-down man, this one man. I don't know, so many different kinds of types of so-called mans, and it has been a hoax. It's been a hoax, like many of those have been hoax, So, what about this linking process? So that was one in 1912, 1953. Anyway, we won't go into details, but somebody connecting all different kinds of parts of different entities and presenting it to be one living entity. So just recently also, what was it I saw in the news? There was a Stanford director of Stanford University. His 5 major papers had to be retracted. Just imagine, he's a director of Stanford. It's one of the most prestigious universities. And he's a director, and his basic 5 research papers had to be retracted because they were published based on flaws and inaccurate information. It's pretty heavy. And then he resigned. So it's pretty. So people will do anything for prestige, for position, for influence, money. So cheating propensity is there. Okay. So now what is Anuman Pramana? So all of the previous topics that we discussed so far, that was part of Pratyaksha Pramana. Pratyaksha meaning something that we observe by or understand by our senses. So that was under that category of the 4 defects. So now we're going to discuss this third part, the second part. This is Anuman Pramana. So we may kind of try to conclude something. It may have been like this, or perhaps it was like this or like that. So then when we were talking about this theory of evolution, so Charles Darwin himself stated, he said, "I'm a firm believer that without speculation there is no good and original observation. After 5 years' work, I allowed myself to speculate on the subject and drew up some short notes. This I enlarged in 1844 into a sketch of the conclusions, which seemed to me probable." There's a lot of speculation. What it means, speculation? Speculation means you're practically dreaming. These are not facts. Science is resting on facts, not on speculation. Speculation is not even theory, because theory has to be proved to be accountable. So speculation is just something that one is really just practically imagining. So in North America, the black bear was seen swimming for hours with wide open mouth, thus catching like a whale insects in water. Even in so extreme a case as this, if the supply of insects were constant and if better adapted competitors did not already exist in the country, I see no difficulty in a race of bears by natural selection, more and more aquatic in their structure and habits, with larger and larger mouths till a creature was produced as monstrous as whale. How does that sound? So next time you go swimming and catching something, watch out what happens when you come back. Yeah. I mean, this is really wild stretch of imagination. Okay. So record of the rocks. Different theories of dating. Man came from monkeys. Well, then why there are monkeys nowadays also? And we don't see any monkeys turning into human beings. So human beings and apes simultaneously existed millions of years ago. You see? You see this fellow here? They found human bones in the layers of strata millions and millions of years ago. There's one very good book anyway, Forbidden Archaeology. If you want to know more about such kind of examples, it's given there. Hundreds and hundreds of examples. Okay. So what is science? Science basically, therefore, is based on observation, and then based on observation there is theory, and then you're supposed to confirm that theory. Therefore, you have an experiment, right? That is basic postulate about science. So human evolution. This is all under the Anuman Pramana. So Maxwell, what he said that no theory of evolution can be formed to account for the similarity of molecules, for evolution necessarily implies continuous change. The exact quality of each molecule to all others of the same kind gives it the essential character of a manufactured article and precludes the idea of its being eternal and self-existent. So this is, we don't see this. If the evolution is going on, it should be going on right now. We don't perceive that. We don't see. Actually, we are not really advancing. We are becoming pretty much degraded. If you study a little bit of history, if you understand the nature of human existence, you really see that there's not much progress going on. Because if we are dependent on technology, and that means that we have become degraded. People in ancient time, they could memorize. Nowadays, how much you have to study, and you have so much struggle studying and absorbing the material. Before people would read something once, they would remember the whole book. So much for being advanced. In the ancient times, people didn't need books. They would hear and remember. That's why there were no books. People say, nowadays we are advanced, we have books. No, nowadays we are degraded. That's why you need the books. It's the other way around. Yeah? So life comes from chemicals. Well, yes. Well, if I give you any amount of chemicals, can any scientist in the most perfect laboratory produce any, even a small mosquito? They can't do it. Okay, what about cloning? See, sounds very interesting. It's manipulation, but it's not creation. You're only taking a living cell. Without taking a living cell, you can't do anything. Take a dead cell. Let them take a dead cell. So then it's always kind of in the future. That's like a post-dated check. If you do some work, how many of you are working? Okay. And if I tell you, I'll pay you your salary after 150 years. And you keep on working. Would you like that? No. That's called post-dated check. So then there was a primordial ocean, primordial soup. I don't know whether the ingredients, whether you will like the ingredients or not in that soup. We have sambar today evening, I think. Okay, so. A bomb. Okay. So there was one Dr. Frog. And here in this Hare Krishna land, we had 2 wells. Now we have only 1. So this Dr. Frog lived in that well. It's behind the ashram. Actually, still there. Now there were 3. 1 was closed, and 2 are still there. So he lived in that well behind the ashram. And he had a very good friend who was a little bit adventurous. So 1 second. This adventurous friend, he suggested, he said that, I'm just so young and passionate. I want to explore the world. I want to go and see what is the world like. And this Dr. Frog said, okay, yes, you're young, go, get some experience. So this adventurous fellow, he packed his little, lunchbox and and then he kept on jumping, and after some time he came here to Juhu Beach. So after, and then he saw, wow, he was really amazed. And then after a few weeks, he came back to the well, and then he met Dr. Frog. And he told it, and then Dr. Frog was so proud. Wow, you have come back, very nice, welcome. What was your experience? What happened? And then this adventurous friend of his, he said, I saw the big ocean. And then Dr. Frog said, what is the ocean? And the adventurous friend said, it's a huge mass of water. It's just huge. It's amazing. It's incredible. And then Dr. Frog, because his whole life he was living in this well, our well here. So then he was trying to conceive then what means ocean. It's a huge mass of water. And how is it? So he said, oh, how big it is? Is it, 2 times bigger than my well? He said, no, it's not. It's not 2 times. It's much larger. Then is it 10 times bigger than my well? No. It's much larger. And then the frog was, Dr. Frog was expanding. And then, you know what happens when you expand too much. Yeah. So that's a story of a Dr. Frog. So how can somebody who is limited, conditioned, try to understand something that is practically unlimited, right? It's very difficult. So by any kind of hypothesis, any kind of what is known here as anumana, it is very, very difficult to conceptualize, how big is the ocean, for example, from the perspective of a Dr. Frog. And then what to speak for us to understand, we still struggle to understand our planet, but what to speak of the universe or anything as such, or solar system or whatever else, no? So by hypothesis, it's very difficult to gain the complete facts. So logic based on imperfect senses. So let's say now, if you would hear the sound of a peacock, what would you conclude? Anybody? What would you conclude? You hear the sound of the peacock, whatever peacock. If you hear the sound of peacock, what would you think? Any hands? Yes.
There is river nearby.
There is what?
River nearby.
River. What does river have to do with peacock?
It's raining.
Huh?
It's raining.
It's raining. Okay, what does rain have to do with river? Huh? Okay. Any
Chanting
other?
Hare Krishna.
If you hear sound of the peacock, what would you conclude? I mean, these are conclusions. That's okay.
They found food.
But a little more precise, huh?
They found food.
Where's your hands? Yes.
There is near forest.
A forest. Again, now we have forest. Okay. Huh? Yes.
You must be happy.
I mean, but hey, you're hearing the whole and you're hearing the sound of the peacock, no? There's no forest around. I mean, there's no any, okay, but...
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah, well, okay, bolo. Okay, any other guesses?
Peacock nearby.
Yeah, but okay, peacocks nearby. Well, what else? Any other? Yes.
Someone making sound of peacock.
Somebody making sound of peacock. That's also an option, no? What about nowadays? You have all kinds of sounds, mobile ringing phones or ringtones, tunes, whatever it is, that all kinds of things. No? Maybe something like this. Yeah, somebody, some kid playing around, or So, but how can we know? The question now is, it doesn't matter what it is. The question is, how can we know? Can we know for sure what's going on? No. If you're here in the closed space and sound is coming from outside, how can you conclude anything? That's the point. So you can't really logically be absolutely sure what is going on. Okay. So what is the problem with making mistakes in research? Okay. Polythene bottles, and then if you reuse it over and over, of course the plastic melts. And there was one case, I remember some years ago, there was some girl he was reusing and she died. It's pretty heavy. That's weird. That was the news here in Mumbai. So, okay, mobile. Okay, here we are. Damage to brain. You knew that? Heart problems, impotency. so many side effects. Well, this is some ancient example. People really sometimes are very interesting. I think Einstein said, how did he say? Oh, he's trying to recollect. There is no end. What was that? Anybody can help me? So human. Yeah, is the human stupidity and end of the universe something? I was trying to understand the limits of both. You know, so he said that end of the universe, you know, it's like maybe end of the, you know, the limit of the universe and the human stupidity. Yeah. So he said there might be an end to the universe, but he said I'm not sure about the second one. Yeah, something like that. So during the bubonic plague, it's a very horrible disease. People claim that the cats were the cause of it, and then they killed all the cats. Now, anybody having cat? No. They killed all the cats. And then they realized that the rats were the real cause. That's not funny. You know? I think 2/3 of population of Europe was you know, wiped out. Really heavy. Because they were really funny. So half knowledge is a dangerous thing. You know, it's if you don't have complete knowledge, then you know it can really create so much disaster. Okay, this is now very disastrous information, which is unfortunately ever increasing. See, the major biodiversity crisis, alarming rate of animal extinctions, mostly due to human-caused habitat destruction and climate change. Almost 1,000 species are extinct. And see, this is 17,000 are listed as threatened to be extinct. See what the humans are doing to this planet? And we are not aware of it? This is not particular animals or this and that. These are species. These are entire species of life. It's pretty heavy. You know, at the end, it's gonna be just you and I don't know, maybe you and some dog or something. It's disastrous. You know. In the name of advancement. Okay. Anyway. Now, we don't have much time now for the games, but I guess it's pretty clear that there are so many things that have been done and are being done in the name of so-called solution, but actually creating a larger problem. I'm sure everyone can come up with something. Okay, so we need absolute knowledge. You know, insufficient, incomplete, so-called half knowledge, it's not sufficient. So man thought he can be happy without God. If only he has money and comforts. Well, most of the people think like this. But we can never obtain complete knowledge by prajaksha and anumana. So that we discussed so far. You know, by conclusion or by sense perception, you can't. It's dangerous to operate a machine with half knowledge. Similarly, it is dangerous to manipulate the universal cosmic machine without knowing about it from the creator who created it. Why do we have manuals? No? Wonder ever why do we have manuals? Just to speculate and try to break things sooner than, you know. We have manuals to know how to use the things properly. Okay, so that's when we're going to start talking now about the Vedic literatures. Okay, that's some example. I don't know if that's going to work now. It's not working. There's a cartoon when one fellow is on a treadmill and he doesn't know how to use it, and then he doesn't end up well. Oh, it's working. So you may be very enamored by certain technology, no? You don't know how to use it. Like I have troubles with some PDF now. This last 2 days, it's so much suffering. So where is the manual that can explain operation of this cosmic machine? If we can get it, then we have the key to happiness. So once you know how to do and utilize anything, then you can understand. And then, you know, how to use it, of course, and that will lead to complete satisfaction. Okay. So the 4 defects that keep us in illusion. Did anyone remember? What are the 4 defects? I know there's been many points. Okay, 1 second. How many hands? I'm just curious. How many of you remember what were the 4 defects we mentioned? You see, you forgot about it. Okay, we'll repeat now. We'll repeat. So please try to remember. I mean, it's not that difficult. It's pretty obvious, actually. Okay, first one is we have imperfect senses, right? Seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. Imperfect senses. Okay, so second, that leads to illusion, right? Remember the rail tracks or broken stick or whatever, no? Some examples again. That leads to illusion. And being in illusion, because of that, we commit mistakes, right? So it's inevitable. There's no one who can claim I never committed any mistake. Everybody does. And once you commit a mistake, then what do you try to do?
Cheating.
Yes, cheating propensity. That's there. Or sometimes you already receive imperfect information. And even if you pass on imperfect information, that's also cheating. You know? Might not be deliberate, but that's also cheating. It's a cheating propensity. Teaching about something that it's imperfect. That's wrong. No. Okay, so now finally we have Shabda Praman. We had Pratyaksha, that means senses. Because of these 4 defects, we had Anuman. We tried to understand the world by speculating, trying to hypothesize, coming up with various theories. So now we have Shabda Pramana. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, Evam parampara praptam imam raja shayo viduhu. That means I've given this knowledge in parampara. Guru parampara, guru disciple. That knowledge, there's a chain of the disciplic succession. From one person to another. So how can a child know who his father is? That's the question. What do you think? How do you find out? Yes.
By asking mom.
Everybody agrees with that?
Yes.
What was?
By listening everyone.
By listening everyone. Okay, let's see here. You know, if you're going to be doing some research like this, try to figure out. I mean, sometimes even asking mother, you can't be so sure. It's like age of Kali Yuga. It's like. So if you're going to be doing some research and try to figure out, you know, you take like genetic fingerprint. It takes 800 years to identify a lot of 200 men, one of whom is likely to be your father, likely. So that's inductive knowledge. Inductive knowledge, it's again trying to hypothesize something based on certain perceptions. You know. So trying to understand things by just research, figuring things out. It's very difficult. That's also called empiric knowledge. Very difficult. And not sure to provide absolute result. So Shabda Praman basically means just ask your mother. That's what it means. Because in our case here, if you want to know who the God is, what do? We read the Vedas, right? We read the Shastra. So Shastra is compared to a mother. So if you want to know who is God, then you just ask the mother. So that's deductive knowledge. Knowledge comes from the authoritative source, somebody who already knows. And you just simply receive the information. So that's why Vedas can give us knowledge of God and not just some kind of general knowledge. Okay. So now we have so many different scriptures, so many different kinds of what is now in the category of the Vedas. And what is interesting with this kind of knowledge, so it's not just general knowledge, but this knowledge applies to everyone at all times, in all circumstances. It's universal, unchangeable. How many theories change nowadays in science? No? Does it apply to everyone, all times, in all circumstances? It's a big difference. It's an enormous difference. You make an experiment, you read the Vedic scriptures, find anything that doesn't fit into this category. It's incredible. So we have to keep on being constantly updated if you want to kind of, be able to live in this world. But if you study the Vedas, you just keep on expanding on particular knowledge and gaining more and more and more and more. You don't have to, come up with some different theory, different this, different that. No. It remains the same. It just keeps on expanding. Just keeps on getting better and better. So we already gave example. It's just like a manual. If you follow the manual, right, you benefit so much. So the Vedic process of learning is just like professors, one who has heard from his guru. Then you have authorized knowledge or college, which is parampara or sampradaya. And then you have authorized books, which are Vedic texts. So the Vedic knowledge was revealed by the Supreme Person within the heart of the first created being, Brahma. And then, as we saw that earlier, he passed that knowledge further onto his son Narada and so forth. Okay. And then we have so many different branches of Vedic knowledge. It's just inconceivable. It's like you would have libraries and libraries and libraries, and we won't elaborate now on this. That's a whole, may say, a seminar on all kinds of different branches of it. Because what means Veda? Veda means knowledge. So that means knowledge about everything. Practically knowledge about everything. And what we have available nowadays, it's maybe just 1/6 of the original knowledge that has been given. Only 1/6. And even within that 1/6, we have 36 Puranas. Yeah. We have, there used to be thousands and thousands of Upanishads. We have at least 200 something available. Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Samhitas, so many commentaries, so many Upangas, different branches of Vedic knowledge, different kinds of Jyotish Shastra, Nyaya Shastra, different darshanas. I mean, one lifetime you can't read, what to speak of studying any of this. It's an incredible body of knowledge. Okay. So, advanced knowledge in the Vedas. Okay, it's in all different kinds of fields, as we can see. We have one presentation on some sciences like mathematics, physics, chemistry. If somebody is interested in this, we can present some of so many different kinds of information that already was available in the Vedic scriptures way earlier than it has been rediscovered in the West. Okay, so all of these different kinds of branches of knowledge are. So, definition of imaginary unit, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, laws of thermodynamics. You see this? There's no science without axioms. Yeah. Okay. So the Vedic knowledge also. Okay. Little steering of incompleteness. So in any sufficiently complicated system, there are true statements that cannot be proven. Science has an incomplete set of axioms which will have questions about nature, meaning God, that cannot be answered yes or no. So therefore faith and reason are not enemies. So you can't, by logic, basically, you can't conclude whether there is God or there isn't God, or God doesn't exist. God is not there. So all closed systems depend on something outside the system, because again, axioms are there, but you still, if you want to prove that system, you need something beyond the system. So. Okay, let's go through it. I'm just looking at the clock. So, reasoning inward from larger circle to the smaller circle is deductive reasoning. So we already mentioned deductive. Deductive meant just receive knowledge from the authority, right? It's so much easier rather than inductive system. So what is deductive reasoning? All men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. That's a common sense logic. Reasoning outward from smaller circle to larger circle is inductive reasoning. Yeah. So what is that? All men I know are mortal, therefore all men are mortal. When I let go of objects, they fall. Therefore there is a law of gravity that governs falling objects. So notice, when you move from the smaller circle to the larger circle, you have to make assumptions that you cannot 100% prove. Okay, so if we can imagine, let's say this laptop here. Can you, just by the existence of this laptop, explain this laptop? I mean, just by having this laptop, explain the existence of this laptop. Can anybody do that? You can't do that. You know, who assembled it, you know, where the material came from, how, and you can't do that. So if you draw the circle around the laptop, you can't explain it. It's not self-explanatory. So if you draw the circle around the universe, can you explain the universe within itself? You can't do that. So this is what is the theory of incompleteness about. Therefore you need somebody or something outside of it to explain it. Okay. So religion and science, faith and reason. Usually people had that misconception that there is some kind of diversity between them, but that's a misconception. Einstein said that science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. Prabhupada said they go hand in hand. Because you need both. You need philosophy, and you also need some faith. It's not one or the other. So there are some examples of validity of scriptures. Like in the Shastra, sometimes it said that cow dung is pure. So if one analyzes all the properties, one will understand how it contains all the antiseptic properties. Then plants have life. The plants react to all kinds of stimuli. You know, then the earth, that the earth was round, for example, or embryology, so many different kinds of information can be found in the scriptures that we know maybe recently, just some hundreds years ago. And then of course predictions of in the future, That has already been predicted, mentioned in the scriptures earlier. And then one can also have a personal realization, experience by following the process prescribed in the Vedas. That means developing divine qualities and freedom from lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy by applying this process. So the main points that we covered today, there were 3 ways of knowledge. So that means pratyaksha, anumana, and shabda, if you can remember this. Then we discussed about 4 defects, right, that lead to imperfect knowledge, imperfect senses, illusion, mistakes, cheating. No? And scientific research due to 4 defects has resulted in mistakes leading to disasters. We keep discovering better and better imperfect relative truths. Whereas the Vedic wisdom Shabda gives perfect and complete knowledge of absolute truth, which is free from the 4 defects. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any comments, questions? Okay, maybe you can think about it later on. We'll be available, we'll be here. So what, we have drama now?
Yes.
Okay, Hare Krishna.